Welcome, my Misfiterinos. So this is another podcast episode with, we're going to be having Claire Lawrence today. But first, I want to introduce myself and welcome you to Academic Misfits. This is the podcast for academics looking for a space that they fit in, whether that's in academia or they leave and find something new where they can fit in. For myself, I was educated in the US and came to Europe for a better life in academia, but either place that I went to, Sweden and UK, were not better for academics. But I just kept on searching. I figured I'd try all the universities in the UK as well. Searching and searching as you would if you're looking for mold in a room from a 1900s house in Liverpool. That's just my reality right now. but yes, I'm recovering from that, and I'm looking forward to today's episode where we're going to explore leaving academia in a celebratory way. So without further ado, I'm just going to go straight to our guest, Claire Lawrence. Hello, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I'm so excited because we've met before. We didn't
Yeah,
work at the same place, but I think I did apply for your at your place of work back in the
yeah.
day. And so we met. I forget why.
I think I invited you to do a departmental seminar,
Oh,
which was fab, by the way. And then we went out afterwards, and I don't think anybody else got a word in edgeways. I think we were just chatting 10 to the dozen for the rest of the evening. But
chatting right away and becoming fast friends, and yeah, it was amazing. And yeah, I just remember like really connecting with you. I can't remember what I spoke about, can't remember why I was there, but I was like, it was fun. So
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
introduce yourself, tell us who you are. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm Claire Lawrence, and for many years I was an academic at University of Nottingham, psychologist. So, well,
Mm.
similar to you, Luna, that whole amazing, interesting, wonderful subject that we got into probably because we were interested in people right from the get-go, but also interested in how people work and what happens when they don't, and how to make things better, and how we fit in as well with other people, I
Mm.
think,
Yeah.
certainly from my point of view. And there was aspects of it I definitely loved and definitely felt right for me. I was doing something I was good at, so that's quite seductive, isn't it?
Mm.
But now, fast forward about, I don't know, 30 years since I first went to university, longer probably. I'm a celebrant, a humanist wedding celebrant, which means that I get to perform wedding ceremonies all over the place, mainly in the UK, but sometimes outside. And it's just joyous, I have to say. It's a life where I've really discovered joy. So yeah.
I love that. So many people write to me and they say, I see your posts and, I talk to you and you left academia and you're just have this joy about you. And then I was like, yeah, but Claire actually brings joy. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But like, yeah, how do
it
you
is.
feel after you've left?
I mean, do you know, when I first, I don't know about you, when I was contemplating leaving academe, and it had really worn me down. I'd definitely come to the end of the road of it anyway, but it was starting to just add my shoulders. I could just feel I couldn't lift myself in any way. Everything felt heavy. Everything felt like like you were stepping constantly into situations that you just thought, if this goes wrong, what am I going to be? Who's going to support me? How's this going to work out? And it was really tricky. And the good side at that stage was that my partner was also an academic, and so could relate, could understand it, but also, was keeping going and keeping their own stuff together. And you just think, oh, something's got to give. And I assumed that the best thing for me to do would be to do something that was very academic adjacent.
Mm.
Use all my skills in a very, very clear and concrete way and do research as a consultant, or do some teaching as a consultant, or do some
Right.
advisory roles as a consultant in academe, and use all my psychological publications and my titles and my awards and all that sort of
And
stuff.
you keep
And
all the elitism and you get to
yeah,
say, well,
for Christ's sake.
I was professor, but now I've branched out into my own,
Yeah.
using my own intellectual property.
Because what else was there? That's what I'd become, that was my entire identity almost, which was never quite right either. It never quite felt as if I fitted the space that was there for me. I was constantly jiggling and trying to feel as if, well, maybe if I cut this bit off myself, this would be better. And maybe if I grew this little bit, which I don't seem to be able to do, but I'll do it, and there was a lot of that going on. And so I thought, well, okay, let's take the shape I've become and look for a hole that this shape fits exactly or as near to, which was to become a psychological consultant in the areas that I was related to. And obviously this was all happening during COVID, and my area is violence, aggression. And the problem with that was that there was no people interacting with each other to be aggressive. And on one hand, that's great, but on the other hand, terrible for me, who's trying to get out there and talk about, hey, let's talk about your workplace and how people are being aggressive, because everyone's like, nobody there, there's nobody here. And the places where there was aggression happening were too busy, and they're too absolutely frantic with COVID and hospitals and retail. And they were saying, yeah, it's really important. It's going crazy at the moment, but we've got our focus on this
right now. Those priorities.
So I felt like, you know what, maybe instead of jumping and looking at something very, very similar, maybe I just stop and just settle. And so that's what I did, an enforced settlement, really, an enforced kind of shaking it down. And then a friend of mine was a humanist celebrant. Sorry, it was a funeral celebrant, I mean. And I said, oh yeah, I couldn't do it. I really empathize with that job. I think it's amazing. I could not do it. I would find it difficult, and dealing with everybody's loss and grief and worrying about getting it wrong, And she said, oh, well, you'd be good at being a wedding celebrant. Never heard of it. Never heard of such a thing.
Do you know why? Like, what was the spark that she said, like, you'd be good at that, and was like clearly certain?
I don't know. And I didn't ask actually either. I didn't ask.
If I were a coach, I would be like,
yeah, I was like, wow, what's going on? No, I didn't. I think because I'm quite chatty. I'm quite, personable, quite gregarious, quite keen to look for the fun. I'm somebody who's very keen to look for the fun in places and the joy in things, which I think why academia was starting to wear me down, because there was very little joy to be found anywhere. And I sort of thought, oh, okay, and looked into it, and then thought, this is it. And I'd obviously been in family and friends' weddings over the years, and just thought, oh, that's not really bringing the magic of these two people who love each other to the fore. This is very much a perfunctory thing, or it's a religious thing that didn't really fit them, and we're all just kind of raising our eyebrows and having a little giggle about it. There was nothing I could see in anybody's weddings that really fitted them. And I'd been asked by friends and family to be part of their wedding ceremonies over the years, either writing something for it or doing readings or helping them kind of arrange and shoehorn things into civil ceremonies that made it a little bit more special.
Oh, wow.
And I suddenly thought, yeah, actually, this is a job. I could do this.
Wow.
So, yeah, retrained.
Oh, wow. So what kind of retraining is it?
So the humanists retraining is a course that is partly online and then partly in person over a kind of an away day kind of approach, or you actually will meet up with other celebrants. And it goes through, some of the legalities. It goes through how you set up and plan. I mean, everything really, how you plan weddings with couples, how you write the things, what you can get resources from. Really all about the whole process, really, right from meeting a couple of people who are thinking about having a wedding and maybe not going down a traditional route, all the way through to, your last words at the ceremony and how you close and send everybody off afterwards. So it was really good and it was interesting, and you meet a lot of people who are ready for a career change often. And you often meet people who have spent their jobs dealing with quite difficult situations as well, that their jobs have entailed things, and they're quite joyful people, but they've been working in areas where there's quite a lot of heaviness in whatever they do. So people who've been nurses for years or teaching kids with special needs for years, and things have just kind of become quite dark at times in their jobs because of the topics that they're dealing with, and are looking for something that will now enrich their souls a little bit and fill that cup back up, in the old analogy, and make them feel like they're putting some joy into the world and not just firefighting and safety netting the whole time. And so it's a really great community, actually. It's an incredibly supportive work environment.
Oh, wow. Like there's not competition.
Well, this is what's so crazy, is that, on paper, we're all competing with each other. But actually, I haven't found, like, occasionally you get the odd individual who's just, that's their personality, that's just them. But by and large, the culture is very much about saying, oh, I don't think this couple's going to fit me, but I'll tell you who you could go to. You could go to this person. These are great. Or, I can't do it that day. Why didn't you speak to so-and-so? Or, and lifting each other up quite a lot. And I was so shocked to see that.
Wow.
Because when you're in academe for years, you kind of think this is the way it is. People might work in teams or groups to get a project done, but ultimately we are all these little prima donnas, terrified that the axe is going to fall on us next, and we're going to be shamed for not publishing the most that year, or that we haven't had a grant application accepted that year. And the spotlight is always in this what if. So you kind of assume it's like that in every other work environment. I did anyway.
Yeah.
And especially the wedding industry, I thought, oh my God, it's going to be like,
Yeah. Like you hear about the amount of funds that people spend on it. You see these like, oh my God, my kid used to watch Say Yes to the Dress or something like this, right? And it's so like emotionally laden with like, the mother-in-law is going to like, bite her if she doesn't like, it's very, it feels very jungle like that you think that's what's happening.
It's exactly what I expected. Not only would the couples potentially be high octane and, very stressed, or at least the other wedding suppliers would be like that too. And actually it's the opposite. It's the absolute opposite. People are very accepting of work-life balance, because it's such a high octane event. You've got to be there, you've got to be on, you've got to be absolutely on it for that wedding. You can't show up and phone in an appearance. You just can't. So everybody, the photographers, the videographers, the celebrant, the cake maker, the venue, whatever it is, all really work hard to kind of make this work and run like clockwork and all the rest of it. So it's a real team feel.
Wow.
And, everybody's busy at the same sort of times, and everybody has the same sort of problems. And it's an incredibly supportive, and people know, somebody's husband's going to be ill and there needs to be some time for them, and somebody knows that their kid's doing this and how they're going to get there. And people just really make it fit, make it happen.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I never really thought about how much there's like a kind of coordination and like a choreography to it as well.
Yeah,
that
huge.
You have to really know what each other are doing, and timing, I suppose, and all those types of things. And like it is a big, I guess, like I remember when I was in school, we had woodworking or something like that for half the year. Like you'd be in a shop, and then the other half of the year was like in, I don't know, like domestic things, right? Like making shorts. And in one of them, we had to like understand the value of money. And so we did
Okay.
a whole wedding one. And so we like, you had to price everything. Like you had to go find out. And this was like before internet. So I was like calling people, right? Like, because this was, I don't know, the late 80s, right? So I'm calling people and finding out the cost of things. But it shows you how much those early experiences and like how much what you did in academia relates to what you do now, because that's all project management. Because
Exactly.
I was going, okay, this costs this and this needs to be done this time and da 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 da. And yeah, do you find that a lot of what academia taught you on the sidelines is useful?
Yeah, yeah, huge amounts. And, obviously there's the public speaking aspect. I think that's the most clear and obvious thing is that you have to be able to also to roll with the punches, if something
Mm.
goes a bit funny in the lecture theatre or in a conference paper and there's a fire alarm goes off or there's something else, just learning how to kind of riff off it and to bring people back into the room or whatever it might be. And that comes in really handy. But also, I think those information gathering skills are huge. So when I'm because the weddings that celebrants tend to write aren't a kind of a do you take this person, do you take this person, congratulations, off you go. They're normally a kind of a good sort of 10 minutes maybe or less on their story, on how they got together or whatever it might be, but it's focusing on them and why they're here, or what it might be about their people, their guests, their community that's important to them, and why you've all been invited and what you're all here for. So in order to do that, obviously I've got to get all that information out of the couple really quickly and in a way that they don't feel like they're being grilled for information. So all those years of designing studies, focus groups maybe, which wasn't massively what I did, but interviews, questionnaires, all those sorts of ideas of how can we make our participants in studies feel comfortable enough to give us the data that we need and realize why they're doing it and to make sure they're happy with the information. Writing, crafting, all those things absolutely come front and center, but you get to write creatively, which in academia you do not. You have to really stop all that.
Yeah. Do you know the first time I had my like taste of writing creatively, but like you said, maybe cutting a little piece off of myself or growing a different piece, right? Was for Times Higher Education, I think it was. They have a spot for doing book reviews. And Karen, I can't remember her last name. I really want to connect up with her if she's like around, was the editor. And she absolutely loved my voice. She said, I want you to write like many book reviews for me. So there's probably like 5 or 6 that I did in the time that she was editor, in that role. But she was like, I love your creativity. I love the way you bring these words in. And I was like, yeah, but I'm also speaking about, I don't know, the psychology of emotions, the 7 sins of psychology, the like replicability crisis of psychology, like all these things. But I was like, infusing like a little bit of like dance or like metaphors or like, you know what I mean, in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this allowed?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's so suddenly freeing to be able to write like that and it not to be, taking you away from the time that you should be spending, I should be writing. As always the academics kind of, little nasty voice in the back of your head, you should be writing. What are you doing?
Yes.
Doing this thing, you should be writing. And it's great that most of my job actually is writing, or a lot of my job is writing these ceremonies. So, that's the joy in it, that you can really free yourself up and play with what you're writing and seeing if this kind of thing works, read it through as if you were doing the ceremony, realize it didn't work and,
Yeah.
use something else, or and it's incredible. And as a result, I get lots and lots and lots of couples who come afterwards, or certainly their guests, and say, "Oh, so were you a friend of theirs? How long have you known them?" And you're like, "Nope,
Oh, wow. That's
because
special.
it's really special." But I think a lot of those come from the academic skills that were picked up along the way, mixed with my personality, not feeling it has to do something different or be something different. Um, and I think in academia, the bit that I grew to really love was things like admissions. I became an admissions tutor.
Oh,
And,
I
there
did that
was,
as well.
yeah, I mean, I think you've got to you're sociable and competent, they'll put you in admissions at some point. I mean, I think it's just inevitable, isn't it? I mean, you can talk to people, you don't get things wrong too often. Let's put you in front of all these sorts
Parents.
of, but it's parents. And I think, that it was the one time that I felt like I could say, as an individual, as a human being, to another set of nervous, anxious, slightly pushy, slightly worried parents who were of, similar age to me often at this point. Right, okay, here's what you really need to know. Okay, here's what you're worried about, and here's how we can sort this out. And it wasn't a case of kind of saying, and here is my evidence, da 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 da, and here is this. It had to kind of be a kind of, you're going to have to trust me on this
Or giving your
approach.
own experience,
Yeah,
perhaps.
yeah, and that was valuable.
Yes.
Saying, having worked in this field for this long, your kid is going to be in safe hands because of these reasons. And if they have a problem, here's what happens. And if this happens, this is what we do. And this is just me telling you this. And that was enough. Obviously, we
Yes.
had all the stuff in prospectuses and everything to back it up for people, but it was really about making that human connection and saying, I know what you're worrying about here. Here's why it's okay. And here's what we
Yeah.
do if it's not. And again, when it comes to weddings, that's a lot of what I do. A
That's
lot, a
amazing.
lot.
And it's not like, I mean, it was valued to them, but admissions, even being head of admissions, doesn't get you
No,
any clout in academia.
no, no, Klaus, no. And I think that was it. I started the greasy pole of, people saying, you should be going for your chair now. Why haven't you got your chair? Why haven't you got your chair? And it's always a really backhanded compliment that why haven't you got your chair? It's sort of partly, I think you are good enough to be a professor, but it's also what is it? What's the dark secret that means that you haven't? What's the gaping hole? And and I definitely did the kind of thing of taking my CV to various people who all said, no, you're ready. Why aren't you going for it? And it was at that point really where I left,
Oh,
where I
wow.
had the entire application ready to go. And I did a kind of do I really want this? Do I really want to say this is it now? Because it would be for the rest of my life. I knew that if I
You
took the
were at
chair.
the altar.
I was literally at the altar. I was literally at the altar. The
You're a
dress was
runaway.
on.
A
The
runaway.
bouquet was about to be passed. I was ready there. It was literally like that.
Runaway
Came news
professor.
today. Yeah. And it was a kind of thing in which, yeah, it was a now or never. It was a now or never. And I just thought, no, I can't. And I knew that, it wouldn't end at the hallowed chair. It would not end at that point. After that, it would be a constant case of justifying my position there, feeling like I had to justify my position there. And
I mean,
yeah,
what did you like? What was your goal in being in academia? Like, did you have a goal, or was it kind of just like, oh, I just got caught up in the wave of everybody else going, this is what you do next?
100% it was that. 100%. Somebody told me I was good at it, and I wasn't massively used to that. I mean, I was a good student at school. I did well. I didn't excel. I was certainly never scooped off for the kids who should apply for Oxbridge or anything like this. I was a good workhorse person. And I always remember, and this sort of haunts me, and my partner always says, oh my God, why is this still going on? I remember a teacher, sort of sixth form teacher said, well, you're always a B student, which I wasn't, to be fair, but there were some Bs in there. You're always a B student. Tell me how you're going to ever stop being that. And I remember at the time feeling like that had just punched me in the stomach. You know, I thought, wow, that's a really,
Wow.
I don't know even where to start with that. And actually, it wasn't true. And she said, well, what you should say if anybody says that to you in an interview, as if anybody would, what the hell? But anyway, what you should say if somebody says that to you ever in an interview is, well, no, look at my track record. You know, there are half A's and half B's, and I am striving all the time to change those B's into A's and da da da. Firstly, nobody has ever asked me that in an
No, no
interview
one
because
ever.
what? And B, you know, it did haunt me all the way through. And so I assumed that that was my position. So I think you have that kind of approach of feeling, you know, maybe that's for others, maybe that's for other people all the way through. So when I got to university and I was coming to the end of my degree and I had, you know, a couple of lecturers saying, "Oh no, you're really good. You could do a PhD. You could become an academic." It was like, you know, being the doors to this magical kingdom being opened and saying, no, you can come in. So I didn't even think, was this for me? I'd been
Right.
accepted. And so it was like, wow, of course, of course.
Yes.
So, and then I got some funding and I was like, well, yes, this is great. This is happening so not easily for me. It's going well. Everybody else is having trouble getting funding. I got it. You know, it was brilliant. Um, and then started, and I definitely struggled through my PhD. I couldn't work out the nuances and the rules and you know, it seemed very, very middle class, which I wasn't.
Hmm.
And I found that quite tough. But I kept making it. I kept making it, and things kept
Mm.
happening. And I got papers published early, and I got this, and it was all,
You were
you know,
changing those
everything.
B's into A's left and right.
Hey, Miss Harris, you'd be so proud. But you know, I kept turning those B's into A's. Things kept being successful. It was fine, but all the while there was this element of, oh yeah, you've managed it, kind of attitude coming back. So you know, you keep feeling like you're going to try and please this difficult parent who never seems quite happy, but almost is, and that's what it felt like being in academe.
There's always a stick
Constantly,
behind you.
constantly trying to please the difficult parent. That's what it felt like. And so it was just a conveyor belt of just what's the next thing I could do? What's the next thing I could do? And trying to make that with areas I loved, in research areas I loved, and trying to pick PhD students in a research group that I liked. But ultimately, it always felt very singular.
Mm.
You know, it was you stand or you fall on your own
And what was your
success. Yeah.
first like inclination that, or did it just feel like a kind of drop in the floor of like, you know what I mean? This isn't for me.
Yeah.
Or was there like little things where you try to, you know, kind of make it fit you? Or like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you
like,
know,
how did it happen for you?
it was definitely a drip. I mean, I could
Yeah.
probably, you know, point to little little jewels of you know, negativity all the way, you know, through. I think people had said things, or you know, the system had operated in a way that meant that, you know, quite major. You know, I had my daughter fairly early on in my career, and you know, the system was very like, well, you know, tough luck. You know, you're gonna have to get on with this sort of.
Mm.
Things have definitely improved now, but at the time it was pretty, you
Mm.
know, that was your choice. You know, tough luck. So there was lots of those sorts of things. But I think what really did it, and it definitely gave me a skewed view of universities, not just the university I was at. I think this is common throughout. Was I became a trade union rep,
Mm,
and
so did I.
so I would, yes, so I was representing cases
Oh, wow.
for members of the union who almost entirely had a really good case that they were bringing.
Mm.
And obviously, like everything, things are complicated. It's always, you know, there are two sides to stories, but, you know, almost entirely, these people had really strong cases that they were bringing, or that they were being disciplined for something that I think, but you as an organization have seen this going on for a while, and this person needed support. Um, and I watched time and time again people getting thrown under the bus. and the forgetting that these were real human beings at the end of the day. And in fact, what the system was trying to do was just get rid of this awkward person who just wasn't quite helping out, and we could use that money for something else because we're really stretched and all these very understandable situations. But you could see what the culture was, and it all was stemming really, I think, from financial problems, in terms of most apartments are running on an absolute knife edge financially now, especially universities are really having trouble in that way. And what happens is you want to try and cut your bottom line. You want to try and cut your costs, and the most expensive things are staff. Yeah. And so I was seeing that where in the past maybe people would have been given benefit of doubt or support, or let to just run their last few years or whatever it might be, people were being, okay, we're gonna go for this person now. And I really just thought I can fight the system, which was what I was trying to do being a trade union rep. But I think all that did was just make me think, wow, this is hard watch. So that was, I think, in the end, what made me just think, when the time comes, there'll be nobody coming in to say, not Claire. You've got to say Claire, because you're replaceable.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people find that hard to believe, that you're replaceable, or that
you're so replaceable.
I know. And like when I was up for redundancy back in 2021, I've been reading through all the comments from all my union, all the other union members about, who I am and all this kind of stuff, it's heartwarming, but it like brings back tears of like what happened during that whole phase. But, I remember the university said, because somebody said to me, I was working in an organization that was really discriminatory towards disabled people, and they had a disability task force, and nobody on that task force running it were disabled. And I said, yeah, we had a task force at our university that was supposed to help all the PhD students. And when I went to them and said, look, I might be going, or, there's a task force, are you okay? They were like, we've not heard from anyone. I was like, it's all smoke and mirrors as well, in terms of the caring, oftentimes. And
it's because time is so limited. I think, people talk about GPs, and saying, well, they're rubbish because, you're in and out and they can't get an appointment. But the time and the staff is really limited. And all those kind of empathic kind of things are often the first to go, because there just isn't the time to get into the conversation.
You don't have capacity.
You're not going to be able to close it. And, I really feel for colleagues in universities at the moment. And I think it takes a real special kind of people to stay and keep it together. And I really admire people who are doing it. But, it eventually just wore me down. And I thought, I'm going to have to pick getting up every day and going in, presenteeism, and, and feeling as if nothing is going to ever be quite good enough.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to have to reevaluate. And so now, definitely I have weddings where I come out of it and I think, I am absolutely on top of the world. That was brilliant. I had a great time. The guests were just connecting. Everything was great. And I have ones that aren't quite as buzzy and amazing as that. And a lot of the time I can walk out of that and think, you know what, I think that might have been a combination. I think the guests were sort of a little bit, it wasn't there. They were unexpected. They didn't know what to expect. It wasn't, wasn't their bag. It was definitely the couple's bag, but, they may not have brought the guests along with them. And it may well have been just that my energy wasn't quite as high that day, but I don't go out of it like in academe and thinking, oh my God, that's it. I'm going to be, just feeling like all the time that's the showcase spotlight thing. You can learn, you move on, you get on, and it feels like there's more resilience. Because it's you. It's you. You have to rely on what you're doing and how you're getting across.
But it also is the system and because resilience as a concept of like, well, you're not resilient, you don't have enough grit, you know what I mean, is toxic in in
Really
itself.
toxic. Yeah,
And
really toxic.
yeah, I mean, did you ever have those feelings of like, oh, I've been rejected by this couple, or I felt like, was that like was there any
Yeah.
vestige from like the academic space of like when you're
No,
rejected?
I'll tell you where the vestige comes from. It's rest time.
Mm.
So in academe, if I wasn't doing something, if I was having a week maybe where I didn't get a lot done, I didn't get writing done, I didn't make progress on a paper, whatever it might be, I would feel this knot of uselessness, laziness. You can't do it anymore. This is it. How long will this go on for? And in the wedding industry, there are obviously peaks and troughs. So I'm right
Mm.
now about to go into the very busy month of December. Christmas weddings,
Ah,
gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Love them. Obviously, April, May, June, July, August, going into September, crazy busy. January, February, bit of March, quieter. I mean, I'm writing in those times, but I'm not delivering. It's not the big turnover of things. So the beginning of this year, especially, my first wedding wasn't until I think the end of April.
oh wow,
So
okay.
I had a long period where I was writing, but there was no sort of sense of urgency and creative juices going. And so January, I knew I should be maybe, updating my website maybe and writing a blog maybe and doing some social media and things like this. And I really didn't have the energy or the zest for it. I was in a very much a kind of let's take some downtime rest. And all those feelings came back. And luckily, I arranged to meet purely to offload about this with another fellow ex-academic who works in a creative industry now. And as I was explaining, I don't know what's wrong. I'm feeling all these things. Maybe it's not for me anymore. Maybe I should just quit. And I'm feeling really, unmotivated. I don't seem to be doing anything. And she said, no, 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 no. That's a very familiar thing you're doing. And I was like, what? You're blaming yourself for being unproductive when what you're doing is resting.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. That's
Yes.
exactly what I'm mistaking rest and my body saying, don't do anything now because there's nothing you need to do right now. There's nothing urgent and you need a rest. You just had a really busy Christmas season of weddings. Chill. Read a book, watch some crap on the telly, go for a walk, do something that's not good for your soul, just do nothing, whatever. You don't have to be marching forward in some way all the time. Just stop for a bit. And
Yes.
so that's the vestige that I find hardest to shake. It's
And
not the rejection because you're used to so much worse rejection. The reviewer too is an absolute swine. So you're used to absolutely ruthless stuff. So every now and again, somebody's saying, oh, I don't think I'd like that kind of wedding. Don't give a monkeys. That's fine. You can choose what you want. It's not going to hit me.
Yeah.
It's really not going to hit me. So I can deal with that, but it's that self negative talk of
Right.
why aren't you doing this?
Right.
They can do it better. They're doing it. They're
Yes.
doing this now. And it was always like that in academe, wasn't it? It was
Mm.
always, what do you mean that you've got a really heavy work teaching load this term and that's why you didn't get a grant in this term? They got a grant in this term and they did it. And you're like, yes. And they also don't have PhD students and so, but just cherry pick. You
Yeah.
just keep cherry picking the bits of individuals and ignore the bad bits and then
Mm.
pick another individuals to highlight these good bits that you're not doing. And and
Yes.
that works at universities at a department level as well. It's like,
We'd get an
psychology.
Excel spreadsheet with all the senior lecturers and how much money they brought in and where you fit in that.
Jesus. Yeah. Yeah.
But you're
Could
right.
you, could you imagine in any other work, that you do?
Yeah, it's not motivating at all to me. And yeah, we talked about like ADHD and definitely that kind of thing is not motivating at
No,
all.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about like just having rest, because I've had those vestiges as well of like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. Other people are getting this done. Other people are saying they have had this success, and then, somebody said to me, like, this is the time of year, maybe it's your time of year where you're going up, but it's the time of year where like leaves are falling and roots are going down into the earth and things are getting ready to be reborn in spring. And, maybe we should take more clues and, indices from nature.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy. And I think it's probably not just analogy, it's probably exactly what was built into our DNA. But yeah, for me at the minute it's busy, but January, February will be that kind of blanketed in frost, hunker down and write, and so you can write, but it's not in that frantic,
Yeah.
I
And
used to dread, September and think here's another summer that I didn't get that big grant in. Gone. And I'm now in September and the work's going to ramp up. And all the excitement that I used to have of, a new tutorial group and some new people, that went because all the tutorials went. Because, no space, no time, so all the little nuggets, just start to go, and it's all about you getting these things and doing more and more of the admin role and doing more and more of the finance role and doing more and more of these roles where if things go wrong, they really go wrong. And you're standing alone going, it was me who got it wrong. So I don't miss that, but I do find I do carry that sense of I should be.
yeah.
Or,
Do you still have connections with, like, what are your connections and networks like? And how did you navigate that? Because you said you still have friends who were or are academics. Like, do you still
yeah.
navigate those spaces, or are most of your network now?
Yeah, I think it's a real mix actually now. So I'm married too, so I kept that connection going. That's how I network. I just marry them, and so there's that connection there. So there's that into the world, if you know. So
You're still hearing about it.
I still hear about it, and I get to say, right, that's absolutely bang out of order. With a bit of distance, that's freaking out of order. Do not take this. Which, sometimes it's validating, I think, for them, but I think sometimes it's also a kind of, yeah, all right, I'm just getting by, love, just don't start making me feel like I need to, be a bastion or champion or whatever. I'm busy. So there's that. And then you'll have definitely had this, I bet, Luna. People who suddenly start saying, so how did you decide to go? And what was the first steps you took? And how did you work out the finances? And you're like, yeah, okay, you're building your escape plan. I can tell. Coffee? Yeah. Okay. So it's definitely that. A bit like when I first separated from my husband years ago. I've been married before. And so many people were like, hi, do you want a coffee? So how did you decide? And when did you tell him? And how did you navigate the kids and all that sort of stuff? Like, yeah, that's what we're doing.
People are coming to me and going, so how did you leave the US?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Right now, especially, right?
Yeah, I bet there are. But so there's those sorts of connections, and then there are a few people who are still inside academe in one form or other. Often, actually, not academics. Often, these are people who've worked in the support services or in admin, who I knew beforehand. But then, a lot of people in the networks now are fellow celebrants or other people who work in the wedding industry, photographers or cake makers or wedding planners, people that you just come across and gel with, and then parents, and that's really nice because, again, you get people who are sort of, it's nice to talk about, it's a nice thing that when you meet up with people and chat about, I worried that when I said I wasn't an academic anymore, or people said, what do you do? I would miss the kind of, oh, wow, I'm an academic at the university, and oh, wow, what do you teach? Oh, that's amazing. And then I realized, actually, that's often where the conversation just stopped. Whereas saying you're a wedding celebrant invites other people into the space, to talk and ask questions and tell me about a mad wedding they were at, or do I watch this on the telly, or did I see this, or what's the worst wedding I've ever had to do, or, it invites that kind of natural chatter where people feel they've got something to contribute. Whereas what I now find is if somebody said, "Oh, what did you do before?" And I say, "Oh, I was an academic." What do you mean? "Oh, I was I was a senior lecturer at the University of Nottingham and lectured in psychology." People go, "Oh God," not in an admiring way, not in a very kind of, oh, right. When I was one, they'd go, "Oh wow."
Yes.
This admiration that you think people have.
Yeah. But also things have changed, I feel. And
Yeah,
or maybe the way that people talk to, like what they're willing to say
yeah,
changes as well. Like
yeah,
I'm thinking of that in terms of like the election as well in the US, like what people are willing to say in a bad way. But like, yeah, I was in a taxi and then we were going past all these new university buildings, right? Like they've all just
yeah,
propped up. Like,
yeah.
yeah, like spring is coming and
Uh,
they're all shiny glass. Like they
yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
match the architecture right next to it, right? And so we're driving by and the taxi driver's like, what do you think about this? And I was like, oh, it's ugly. And like, they're just taking over more of our city, where there's not even people from the city even going to this university. It's mainly, like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't take care of their own community. Do you know what I mean? And he was like, yeah, and I was like, I love this space. I love like now just being one of and I've been on community groups about what the university's doing. Like, what does the community think about the university? What's our reputation? Are we doing enough in terms of anti-racism? All this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm a community member now. And it's a special place. Whereas I think, yeah, what you said about, oh, am I gonna say like I used to like saying like, oh, I'm at the uni of, I'm not at LJMU, I'm not at Edge Hill, I'm not at Hope, like,
Yeah,
and it was like this hierarchy
yeah,
within the freaking hierarchy. Like we're
yeah,
already in a hierarchical structure, and then you have
yeah,
hierarchy
yeah.
of which university. Oh,
Oh,
same thing with Nottingham,
it
right?
is insane. It is insane. And it's not only that, you've got the individual competitiveness with your research groups and, social psychology is rubbish and, personality psychology is
Neuroscience. You should be in
rubbish.
neuroscience.
And, even amongst the neuroscientists, you've got, yeah, but I'm a vision scientist. Yeah, but I'm a theatre scientist. And it's absolutely bloody insane. And then you've got the departmental, physics is better than biology, and, all this sort of stuff, and on it goes. And then you've got the university level, Nottingham Trent,
Yeah.
God bless them. But look at the stats. They're amazing. They're doing really great. Yes, but they're not Nottingham University. And
It's not made out of red brick.
it's the same for every single city. It's that kind of post 92, pre 92 kind of snobbery that still
Yeah, and
exists.
my favorite place to work was UCLan. I had an absolute ball there. There were the people with pink hair there.
UCLan is hysterical, though. I mean, it's just the funniest, joyous place and really good people. It's just
Loved it.
yeah. But and I think this is it. I think when you're surrounded by that edge all the time, even though you're aware of it, you forget how much you internalize it, and you look eventually. When I found myself, which I did get out of luckily, but I found myself at one point going, well, they're not writing. That's why they are da 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 da. They're not writing. They're not publishing. So and I found myself really starting to do this and thinking, you know what? Why is it? Why do you care? Why do you care, Claire?
Yeah.
What's it to you? Let them do what they want. You do
Yeah.
what you want. Let them do what they want. Just shut up. Because everybody felt so attacked. They were looking constantly for things, me included, that put them a bit above somebody else as well. It's a not a great environment. And of course the culture breeds that, because competition means that people will be writing more and getting more money in, and and that doesn't happen. As soon as I felt like I was being negatively compared, would just say, do you know what, I don't want to do it then. That would be my response. Well, I'm not going to play that game then.
And I
I've
love
got no
your,
chance.
I know I'm not a party to this, you know, like I'll just go do my own thing. Yeah. And I love your idea about play as well, like having the play that you can have when you leave. And I tried to find play when I was there, like in academia. Like I'd be like, oh, I'm going to play with VR in some of my research studies. Like, you know, I try to add an element of play, but
Mm.
it got harder and harder. But yeah, I mean, what do you think about play? Like how, because you kind of like threw it out there, but like, what do you,
It
yeah.
is essential. For me, it's essential. It's absolutely essential. And that might just be, having a really nice collaboration chat, or it could be getting some fancy kit or some basic kit that you can mess about with and throw in. It could be, toying with, you know, boring now, but a new form of analysis that you think, you know what, I'm going to
Mm.
spend a couple of days getting to grips with this and
Yeah,
really
that's
working
true.
out if I can do it. And then I'm going to see if my data is more interpretable using this, or whether all I'm doing is just moving more crap data around and what's happening. But that space for play, I think, is essential. And academics, that is part of our play, isn't it? It may sound a bit nerdy and a bit, dry as dust to somebody else, but actually that is a bit of play to us. It's not that churn, get another paper out.
Mm.
It's about having that space to have. And the best times in academe for me were definitely those collaborative, with an old-fashioned whiteboard, saying, look, we're finding this and this connect, but this doesn't. Why? It should do, theoretically, it should do, but time and time again, we're not finding it. What's the explanation? How is this working? And bouncing off each other. And that was just so enriching and energizing. And, they're the really sparky moments. And you see that in physics. You talk to physicists, and that's the times when they really kind of have breakthroughs. And, sometimes the play will go nowhere,
Yeah.
but sometimes it will. And I think sometimes it's having that time to be experimental and thoughtful and get to somewhere that may actually be amazing, be really, really great, or just part of a job that makes that you want to turn up the next day.
Yeah.
It can be both of those things. It doesn't always have to be it
Mm.
achieves this amazing end goal. Sometimes the end goal is I want to come to work again tomorrow.
Yes.
You
So if any
know,
VCs are listening to this, or anyone who
yeah.
runs universities, we need more play.
And play is not bloody putting people in a room and saying, let's do some colouring in and mindfulness and have a pizza night. God, that
I've
that
had
that
those.
that used to make me furious.
Yeah.
Let's not look at getting another member of staff, which we desperately need.
Mm.
Let's
Yes.
buy a pizza every 2 months and
Or do some Legos, and that's pretty
do
much it.
some. No, it was no too
Like
much.
having a play date that was arranged by your, like you said, your parent that you're really
And then you've
trying
got to
to.
catch up with your work when you get back. And who's going to be the one who stays the longest because they're not very productive? Anyway, mustache, got a deadline. All this
Exactly.
performative nonsense that went on.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
So if
horrendous.
somebody was considering like leaving, let's say, because a lot of people say to me, but I love my qualitative research. And, you said you started in the beginning talking about like the focus groups and interviews that you do, or they say, I really love my teaching, or I really love the research and the figuring things out on the board. I mean, do you feel like you're losing those things, or are they embedded in what you do now in a different way?
No, they're embedded in what I do now for definite. And I think, you still talk to people about subjects, you still work out theories, you still have hypotheses, not just in the job, but in your daily life. But I think I completely get that. There's an identity shift, which worries people before they do it. 100%, I get that. But there is a real, like, oh, but I'll lose that sense of creating new research. For me, it was the creating new research. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to unpick exactly what elements of these things you love. So when people say, I love my qualitative research, what are you talking about? What do you love? Is it the talking to people and building a connection in a topic you're interested in? for a goal down the line, not just for itself? Are you talking about pouring through data in a really close way, language, the way in which people say these things, or these amazing insights that people discovering those like little nuggets of treasure that you can suddenly say, oh, that's the point, that's the issue. What is it? And what can you do that replaces or gives you that, but without the absolute, and if you don't do it by the 18th of September, then the deadline for that grant is gone, and
Right.
what can you do? There might be a different deadline, obviously, but so I think it's think financially. I would definitely do that, because no matter what you do, putting a website out there not going to get you clients or customers or anything else.
Nope, I tried that. That was
Yeah,
the
and
first thing.
that's what you somehow assume it's gone. Make it public. When you press that publish or make it public, for some reason, even though you've written papers for years with a readership of one, for some reason you think this is going to be different because I agonized over the colors of my website. And I'm going to press publish on my website. I'm going to be like, bing, bing. How am I going to cope? I've launched my business. Bing. Yeah, prepare for tears on that one. That's
The readership of one. Yeah, it's so true.
For some reason,
But it's open access. You don't understand, Claire. It's open access now.
Open access. Oh my gosh, exactly. So, I think, you are not, unlikely, you are not going to make money that is going to change your life.
No.
Oh, at first, so you need a financial strategy, exit strategy, and redundancy obviously is always a really handy
Yes.
safety net to start with. But I think also you need to look at, doing sort of things alongside sometimes and just getting a feel. And sometimes you might say, oh, you know what, this is not scale upable, I'm not going to be able to do it. In which case, you need to look at your workplace and think about what changes you can make in it. With bravery, I think sometimes. And I think, knowing that there's a bit of an exit strategy can help you be brave. Sometimes knowing there isn't an exit strategy can make you feel brave as well, because it makes you realize, sod it, this is what I'm going to have to do. I'm not going to just dream that I won't do it one day. I'm going to have to address this situation I'm in.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. I think financially, 100%. See a financial advisor if you can, or at least talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about. Don't worry too much about tax at the moment, because the chances are you're not going to earn very much in the initial stages. So you just need to see where you are in terms of your tax threshold. But that's that boring bit aside.
Yes.
Other than that, I think just really think about what you loved about academe, break it down into its little tiny elements, that what it was, and look at roles and ways that you can create. Might be starting your own business, might be going and working for something else. You may take a pay cut, you may earn more. But what I did is I said, okay, if I earn half as much as I am in academe, would I be prepared to stop this daily? Oh God, I've got to go to work. How much would I pay per year to avoid that happening? How much would I actually pay properly in money if I could guarantee that wasn't going to happen? And it turned out it was quite a lot of money I was prepared to pay.
That's amazing.
And I thought, well, do you know what? Let's imagine I've paid that, and then I'll earn this, then that will be my salary, if you know what I mean.
Wow.
Have that in my head as the going amount. Weird accounting, I know, but it really helped. I just thought, you know what? I will take the hit to pay for my peace of mind.
And you're the second person on this podcast to say that. Do you know that Sonia Tucci at University of Liverpool?
Wow.
She said, I retired. Yeah. I retired because I would rather pay them the salary.
Yeah.
This amount of money to have my free time.
Exactly.
And she makes cakes. If you were in the same city, you'd know each other. She makes cakes. Yes. She makes chocolates and cakes, chocolatino. And yeah, that's what she said. She was like, I'd rather pay them though. And it was so interesting to hear that. For me, it was like, what's the bare minimum? Because I've lived in poverty before, and I've had to like count every single, you know, and go into a shopping center with like a little ticker, you know, to be like, okay, this is how much money it is. I mean, now you can kind of scan them and stuff like that. But anyway, and I just went, what's the minimum amount that I need? And obviously, like with the redundancy, I did have like a little cushion backup. But what's the minimum? What can I cancel? Canceled, you know, Spotify, Netflix. Like, actually, do I need these things? No, I've got DVDs. You know, I still have my CDs. I still have cassette tapes. Like, and so, yeah, it was really about that. Like, what's the bare minimum? I don't even have a car. I don't need to buy a car. I live close enough. I have, you know, thankfully, I'm able-bodied and can walk or cycle. And that was the thing, you know, and the other thing was the big realization while I was in the union when we were figuring out the effects on our pensions in what was that, 2017, 18, something like this. And we had the 4 fights and everything like that. And I went, oh my goodness, I don't actually think I make that salary because I work a lot of weekends. I work a lot of nights. I spend my time thinking about work a lot of the other times that I'm not actually at work. Yeah. And so when I take that salary and I divide it by like, I don't know, maybe not ridiculous, like 80 hours a week, but let's say you divide it by that. Your salary is not that salary anymore. Your chronic conditions that are, you know, now accumulating based on that is also not worth it. And I just started going, that's not my salary.
No, that's right. I think that's exactly it, you know, and when you work in an environment that assumes people will be lazy unless you bash them all the time, you know, it kind of has that approach. It's really bad for your mental health, I think. It kind of, you know, even if you don't have a major mental health breakdown or struggle, just that daily chip away about how you're being viewed. And I think particularly for people who are neurodivergent, that sense of injustice, that sense of, but I'm not, why are you treating me? Why are you making me demonstrate that I've done work this week? Or, you know, pretty much, of course I'm doing work this week. That's what I'm being paid for. It's my job. But the assumption that, you know, you have to constantly justify your existence and your salary, I think feels so unjust. Because you're like, well, you know, everything I publish is open access. You should be able to see what I'm doing. You know, I'm here, you see I'm here. Why am I also then having to every 6 months provide something that tells you and have to sit down and wait to see if that's going to be good enough? It's crazy, you know. So I think all those sorts of scenarios, you think, well, how much would you pay to not have to do that?
Yeah.
And how much would you pay to not have to deal with those students who are particularly horrible? Yeah. Not all the great ones, but the ones who are really awful and who you daily wonder whether they're going to say some vexatious complaint because that's the only avenue they've got left, you know. And you see it happening to colleagues, and you see it happening to colleagues that deserve it, and you see it happening to colleagues that absolutely do not. And you see the way the university goes, oh, don't upset the student. And, you know, how much would you pay to not have to have that? And how much would you pay for this, you know? Yes. So once you start adding all that up, you realize that actually that's quite a hefty sum per year. You know, if you compare it to Netflix or you compare it to something else that you go, oh, I didn't know I still had that subscription for that thing, you know, all those things that suddenly get cancelled, you know. So yeah, so the finances are definitely something you have to look at, but how much do you really need?
Yes. Oh, I love all of this conversation. It's incredible. I think people will really appreciate that perspective. And it's something that I have my clients do in like my programs is like, let's do a financial worksheet first. Because
I think that's really good, actually, Lynn. I think a lot of life coaches forget that people have to eat.
Yeah.
You know, and heat their houses. And it's all about the kind of, oh, you know, let's do the self-actualization. What's the best version of you?
Dream
and all that
board.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. No,
you got to eat.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. You need to see people where they are. And I think that's the perspective that we bring is like not having grown up middle class is like That's number one. Like you have
That's
to
the
eat
one.
and you have to keep that roof over your head. And in the US, like health insurance and things like that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's very much nuanced.
My mother always used to say, I mean, she was proud of me. She never really understood what academe was, but she was proud because of course. But she used to say, I'd say, oh, they've put me in charge of this thing now, and oh, I've got this paper published, or I've got this grant, and it's worth, £500,000. And my mum would go, brilliant, is that going to be more money then for you? And I'd go, no, but and she'd be like, what? I said, well, no, it's good for my CV. And she'd go, for what? Your CV for what? Are you changing jobs? And I'd be like, no, but it's good for my CV. And she'd be just like, are you a mug? And I'd be like, no, because they'll give me senior lectureship, and the years gone on. And she's like, did they give me the senior lectureship? No, not no, but because they've given me a job in admissions.
Did they take workload off of you? No, but
No,
but they promise that it'll.
yeah, because everybody's working hard. So, and I just think, yeah, listen to those voices sometimes, and we all have difficult relationships with parents, and I know, but sometimes it's that kind of brutality of, what?
Are you a mug?
Are you a mug? Yes, I am.
We were
Yes.
we were in this cult, and
Yeah.
we believed magical thinking was involved
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. I think so. I think it is because occasionally you see these people, and when people change and they get the job and then they become I don't know, registrar, or they become whatever, suddenly it's like, oh yeah, I know I used to say it was unfair, the system, and I wasn't getting promoted, but I think you just needed to get that really jammy grant that year. That's what happened. That's what changed. That's what happened. And it suddenly goes from, you know, external to internal locus of control, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. We could talk forever. This is incredible. But I wanted to, because you're a celebrant and you probably listen to a lot of music and prepare with music and maybe even write with music. Actually, I'd like to hear about that. But what is your kind of go-to song right now, or your kind of liberation song, or your celebration song, your joyful song?
It's I bet this is other people's too, because it's an absolute belter, is Move On Up, Curtis Mayfield. Just the best song.
You
Just
can't
the
sit
best song.
down when you listen to that.
Yeah, no, absolute best song. And I think it's always resonated me with in times of kind of triumph and in times of difficulty and in just day to day, it's one of those really great songs. And I, for years, misheard the lyrics. I love misheard lyrics. But there's a lyric, and I think it's take nothing less than the supreme best, right? But I'd misheard it for years as take nothing less than the second best. And I freaking loved that sentiment. I loved it. Maybe it's the B student coming out. I just realized, oh my God, revelation. It's therapy.
It's the
But,
beast.
I just thought, yeah, why do you have to strive to be the best? Be the best. Why? Just don't take anything less than the second best. Yes. Amazing. Do your plan B. It might be better. Do this, my better. And I loved that sentiment. Actually, it is the supreme best in the song, but we'll just glide over that. But I love that kind of that lovely plaintive first few lyrics of hush now child, don't cry, your folks might understand you by and by, they might do, but the idea is but if they don't, what are you going to do? If they don't, they don't, and your folks change for me at different areas of life. Sometimes it was the academics, sometimes it was the systems, sometimes it was family and folks, sometimes it was friendships, but it was this idea that they might understand you by and by, but we're not holding out for this. Just move on up to what you're doing. Love it. Love it. Plus, it's got an absolute amazing brass
I love it.
thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think they played it at the going away party. There was a going away party for like three or four of us. Like there were so many people leaving, so we did a party together, and they played that because I remember me and Mina Lyons, dancing to it, and we were just like, I love Curtis Mayfield, like
Yeah.
just everything.
Yeah, everything. Exactly. It's just hits every single thing. So yeah, you can't keep still.
I love it. And you know what? You know what my misheard lyric is? My child like actually pulled me on it, when I was in the car and I was singing and they were like, "Mom, what are you singing?" And I was like, "It's this." And that, no, that's not that. But we could also like extrapolate from it into like academia or whatever. So I think it was who's the band? Oh, I'm not going to remember the band, but the lyric is, don't follow the signs, they are misguiding. Don't follow the signs, they are misguiding. I don't know if you remember who that is. And it's a British band. Anyway, so the I was singing, just follow the signs, they are misguiding. And my kid was like, Mom, it's not even that you misheard. It's just logic.
Yes.
My kid was 9 and they're like, it's logic.
You're not even making sense to yourself. Just
And I feel like that's what your mom was saying.
yeah, literally. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
It's just logic.
Just logic.
What is this CV
You're
going
right.
to? Where are you putting this CV? Where is it going to be held up? Is it in Times Square? Like what?
And also, she was sort of saying, "Give me something. I can't go and tell people this. Give me something better." What do you mean? What do you mean that you've got this grant application for £500,000, but you're not getting any of the money? What do you mean?
What do I tell my friends when we're
What are you saying about this? This is mental.
when we're afternoon tea, when we're having our cream tea?
Yeah.
Well, my
I've
daughter,
never had a cream tea in her life. Have a cigarette. No,
she's having a cigarette outside the pub.
Yeah.
And they're chatting.
And I think this is it about having that sense of, I love that kind of take nothing less than the second best. I love my version of it because it just says, stop giving yourself this bloody pressure of whatever the best is. Best to who? Best to who?
Best to who? Shit, yeah. I now have to mark the podcast as, not safe for children and because I just said shit. That's totally fine. This is absolutely wonderful to speak to you. And I definitely need to come visit you again.
Yes,
we need to go to the pub and smoke a cigarette or whatever.
100%. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me, Luna. It's been an absolute joy as always, but it really has, and it's very grey December morning. It's a good start to the day.
Absolutely. Where can people find you if they want to see more joyous pictures or anything like that? Are you on social media?
I'm on TikTok. Okay. And on TikTok, I'm kind of talk a lot about tips for weddings, but also readings. So I do readings of some poems and passages that might be nice, that are slightly non-traditional for people to have in their weddings. So if you're planning a wedding, that. And then if you just Claire Lawrence Celebrant, that will get you pretty much everywhere actually. So Google Claire Lawrence Celebrant, websites there, Insta, Facebook.
Okay.
I don't do X or Twitter or any of those, but
I'm off of that now.
Yeah.
Well, I've been off for probably a year. I think I went on briefly, but then went, it's still a hellfire.
Still toxic.
Yeah.
And I'm off LinkedIn as well, so you won't find me on LinkedIn.
Oh, right. Okay.
For the same reason. Just, there's only so blessed, delighted, thankful you can be for. So thankful that today I did it. So grateful. So
Happy to announce.
It's just it just triggers all those sort of
academia.
Yeah.
I need to get back on TikTok. I need to do more dancing. I have a couple of dancing videos on there. I need to do more of that. I'm going to find you. I'm going to find you.
Yeah. My dancing ones, you have to scroll down quite a bit for my dancing ones.
I'll keep following you from now on then. So yes, I'll put the links in the description for the episode so everybody get Claire Lawrence's details from there. But yes, thank you so much for being on here. Lovely.
You too. Yeah, you too. Well, take care.
All right. Bye.